is Louisiana's premier news magazine, with correspondents R.C. Chapa, Jeff Dewey, and your host, Robert Collins.
Good evening. On tonight's program, we'll take a look at the latest turn in what seemed never-ending court battle over the desegregation of higher education. And we'll talk about health insurance in the upcoming Clinton years. But our top story this evening is the effect the Clinton administration will have in several areas of Louisiana life: the economy, environment, and education. R.C. Chapa has our report.
Having won the election without clearly defining himself, President Clinton is about to begin his term with the sketchiest of political mandates. The foremost challenge for the United States, as he said often on the campaign trail, is to start investing in the future again. Without investment and growth, he said, the economy cannot produce good jobs, supply resources for cleaning up the environment, or provide young and old with the economic security they need. He echoed this same message in his inaugural address.
My fellow Americans, you too must play your part in our renewal. I challenge a new generation of young Americans to a season of service, to act on your idealism by helping troubled children, keeping company with those in need, reconnecting our torn communities. There is so much to be done. Enough indeed for millions of others who are still young in spirit to give of themselves in service too. In serving, we recognize a simple but powerful truth. We need each other, and we must care for one another.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. So help me.
Clinton's selection of Al Gore as his running mate is evidence the environment will play an important role in determining energy policy. In addition to increased use of alternative fuels such as natural gas, there was also talk during the campaign of using more renewable energy resources, scaling back nuclear power, and increasing the gasoline tax. Although Clinton has not gone on record in support of energy taxes, 3 of his top transition aides, including one who may run the Environmental Protection Agency, have called for an increase in the gas tax. Holly Abington, with the Louisiana Oil Marketers Association, says this could be bad business for the state.
It could have a significant impact if Edwards is successful in getting his 10-cent per gallon tax. Then we'd be looking at the highest priced gasoline in the country. Already Louisiana is way at the top. We're in the top 10%, paying 20 cents per gallon state tax and about 15 cents per gallon federal tax. If you add Edwards' 10 cents to that, we will be #1 in gas tax in the country. And as a result, our prices that we pay at the pump will be the highest probably in the country. And for a state that produces a lot of the gasoline that's consumed throughout the country and the world, a lot of times consumers have an expectation that our prices should be lower, when in fact, because of all the taxes we pay, they're not.
LSU economics professor Lauren Scott agrees.
Think about for a moment, Louisiana's second largest industry is the petroleum refining industry. As a matter of fact, we are #2 in the nation in petroleum refining capacity. And we learned from the early 1980s that when you raise the price of gasoline significantly, people buy significantly less gasoline. So I would anticipate that if that proposal goes through, then our second largest manufacturing industry is going to have to cut back and lay people off, and that will have spillover effects throughout our economy.
Over the past 2 decades, the struggle for environmental improvement in the United States has often involved a contest between government and industry. While some firms are now cooperating with federal efforts to improve the environment, many companies still lobby against new environmental legislation, saying these laws will cost jobs.
Members of Louisiana Oil Marketers Association are really inundated with regulations on everything from their underground storage tanks where they store the gasoline to how they transport it, to vapors that are released at the gas pump and go into the air. And they want to see some common sense approach applied to regulations. I mean, there's not one member of our association who doesn't want to see a clean environment. But what we want to see is we want to work with the government to make regulations that make sense and that are not redundant and that are, within reason to comply with.
I'm concerned a little bit on the environmental side, because if you take people and look at people along the spectrum, where these are people who don't care anything about the environment, they don't care what happens. And you have people here that are kind of in the middle who care about the environment and think anybody who's made a mess ought to clean it up. Then you have people who have bought into every extreme position every environmentalist has ever made, all the Malthusians, all the doomsayers. Vice President Gore is down here, and to the extent that Vice President Gore has any significant influence on the presidency and on policy in Washington, I think you're going to see greater environmental regs coming down. And I think then you're talking about our largest industry in the state, and that's the chemical industry, and again the petroleum and refining industry too, that are in really great danger, I think, of having a lot of new regs put on them, and they will respond by cutting back or moving out of the state, etc.
Mary Lee Orr with the Louisiana Environmental Action Network says she's very tired of this argument.
For 8 years, that's all the rap they give, We'll move, we'll relocate. In fact, I haven't seen any industry relocate when regulations are more stringent. I haven't seen anything but positive effects come out of regulation. Sometimes processes have been changed, but they in actuality have found that what is one man's waste is another man's profit. We have to be creative when we have critical problems. We have to encourage new technology. We have to encourage people to come forward with solutions and not be a doomsday sayer. And I have more faith in the industry in Louisiana and the people. I believe that together we can solve these problems. I'm sorry that the other people don't think that.
Because Louisiana is #1 again in the overall absorption of toxics to our air, land, and water, Mary Lee Orr believes the state needs aggressive action to protect our natural resources.
I think that the only people who should fear regulations are those people who are not complying or have severe problems that are affecting our natural resources, and we're not. They are finite, and we forget that. Everything is not here forever, and they need to be protected, and we couldn't have survived under President Bush and Quayle's Council for Competitiveness and what he was doing to the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. And I feel with Vice President Gore, awareness, not necessarily his unfairness, but his awareness and his sensitivity to natural resources, that there's hope. We have years and years of environmental degradation to deal with. It is a huge task, and it can't be done by just one person. It will take business and industry, not saying that they can't solve it, by saying we can solve it together. We'll come to the table and we'll try to deal with those problems. We'll sit with community people, we'll sit with our workers, and we'll sit with the administration. It has to be a unified effort. I think perhaps maybe that's what President Clinton is too, unity. For people of color, minorities, workers, community people who felt isolated before by the other administration, I feel.
Americans deserve better. And in this city today, there are people who want to do better. And so I say to all of you here, let us resolve to reform our politics so that power and privilege no longer shout down the voice of the people. Let us put aside personal advantage so that we can feel the pain and see the promise of America.